Rain streaked the tinted windows of the black sedan idling outside Seoul's most exclusive nightclub, where power wore tailored suits and spoke in whispers. 23-year-old Jong Sung had just spilled blood to claim his place at the table, until a moment of weakness, a vow made in darkness, and a woman he should never have noticed transformed him from survivor into something far more dangerous. Welcome to the channel. Happy New Year to you all. As we step into this new year, I want to wish our amazing community a year filled with love, breakthrough, and incredible new beginnings. I'm so glad you've joined us for another powerful story. Whether this is your first time here or you're a long-time listener, I'm thrilled to have you in our community. Before we get started, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. It's the best way to support the stories you love. Also, I love seeing how far our stories travel. Leave a comment below and let me know which part of the world you're watching from today. Now, let's jump straight into the story. The Korean Mafia boss vowed he must have her. It Remains a Mystery opens with the brutal forging of Jong Sung, a man carved from violence and ambition, who learned that control meant survival in Seoul's merciless underworld. When a violent coup forced him to eliminate everyone he trusted, Jong made an iron vow: never let anyone close enough to become a liability. Years later, that vow has built him into an untouchable syndicate boss, his body marked with ink that tells stories he never speaks aloud, until Sabrina enters his world, a woman whose presence shatters his carefully constructed distance. What begins as protection threatens to become obsession, devotion, and the very weakness his enemies have been waiting to exploit. The alley behind the Gangnam Club reeked of copper and rain. Jong Sung was 23 years old, kneeling in a puddle that reflected neon signs in fractured colors, when he understood that mercy was a luxury men like him could never afford. His mentor, the man who had pulled him from the streets at 16, who had taught him to read ledgers and break bones with equal precision, lay 3 feet away with a bullet hole where his left eye used to be. The old boss had made a mistake. He had trusted his nephew. He had believed blood meant loyalty. Now his blood mixed with dirty water and cigarette butts while that nephew stood in the VIP room upstairs, already dividing territories like a king. Jong's hand shook. Not from fear. From the weight of the gun someone had pressed into his palm 10 minutes ago with a simple choice: prove yourself or join the old man in the gutter. He had proven himself. The rain fell harder now, washing pink rivulets toward the storm drain. Jong stood slowly, his white shirt clinging to his ribs, ruined. His face remained blank, a skill he had perfected in the years since his parents had sold him to settle a gambling debt. Emotion was information. Information was leverage. And leverage was the only currency that mattered in Seoul's underworld. Inside, the music pounded through walls thick enough to muffle screams. Jong walked back through the service entrance, past kitchen staff who suddenly found their prep work fascinating, past the coat check girl who had been crying into her phone 5 minutes ago and now stood frozen. He climbed the stairs to the private floor where power changed hands in rooms that smelled of expensive whiskey and cheaper decisions. The nephew, Park Min-jae, a man who wore Italian suits and had never once been hungry, looked up as Jong entered. Around the table sat the 5 men who controlled the city's south side: loan sharks, drug pipelines, protection rackets, and one very lucrative human trafficking operation that Jong had always found distasteful but never questioned. Until tonight. Jong Min-jae said, using the familiar form like they were brothers. They were not brothers. You look like shit. Go home. Clean yourself up. We'll talk territory tomorrow. Jong stood in the doorway, rain still dripping from his hair onto polished marble. He thought about the old boss, who had once told him that the difference between a soldier and a king was knowing when to stop taking orders. He thought about the gun still tucked against his spine. He thought about the 15-year-old girl he had seen being loaded into a shipping container last week, zip-tied and sobbing. No, Jong said quietly. The room went silent except for the bass line vibrating through the floor. Min-jae's smile faltered. No. The trafficking ends tonight. You divide the rest however you want. But that business is done. One of the older men laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Boy thinks he has a vote. Jong pulled the gun smoothly, aiming it not at Min-jae but at the man who had laughed. His hand no longer shook. I don't need a vote. I need your answer. In or out. What happened next took 7 minutes. When it was over, 3 men were dead, 2 had fled, and Jong Sung sat in the chair at the head of the table with blood on his knuckles and a cigarette he did not smoke burning in the ashtray. Min Jae was not among the dead. He had been smart enough to run. Jong looked at his reflection in the black window, a ghost of a man backlit by red neon. He made a vow in that moment, silent and absolute. He would never again care about anything enough to hesitate. He would build an empire where loyalty was bought, not given. Where no one could betray him because no one would ever be close enough to matter. He would become untouchable. He would become alone. He had no idea that 7 years later, a woman in a backless gown would walk into his world and turn that vow into a lie. Jong Sung learned early that mercy is a death sentence. Are you ready for this ride? Subscribe now and tell me, would you survive the streets of Seoul? Sabrina Hayes learned early that being the only black woman in a Seoul boardroom meant arriving 15 minutes early, speaking last, and never showing doubt. She had mastered all 3 by the time she was 25. Now, at 28, she walked into the Hannam Tower lobby with her portfolio under one arm and her armor perfectly in place. Tailored navy suit, hair swept into a low bun, heels that made her tall enough to meet most men at eye level. The luxury hotel redesign project was worth $8 million. Her firm had sent her because she was brilliant, because she was hungry, and because the client had specifically requested someone who understood how to blend Western minimalism with Korean traditional aesthetics. What they had not told her was that the client was a shell corporation owned by interests that did not appear on any public registry. She did not need to know. She needed to deliver renderings by Friday. The elevator climbed 43 floors in silence. Sabrina checked her reflection in the polished brass doors, smoothed a non-existent wrinkle from her lapel, and stepped out into a hallway that smelled like leather and old money. The penthouse suite at the end was guarded by 2 men in dark suits who looked at her the way museum security looked at tourists, alert, assessing, prepared. Sabrina Hayes, she said. 2 o'clock appointment. One of them spoke into his wrist. The door opened. She had designed spaces for tech billionaires and oil heirs, for celebrities who wanted their bathrooms to look like art galleries. She thought she understood wealth. But the penthouse was something else entirely. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Han River like a painting, furniture that whispered rather than shouted, and in silence so complete it felt like walking into a vault. A man stood at the window with his back to her. Tall, broad-shouldered. Black suit jacket hung perfectly despite the way he had his hands in his pockets, relaxed in a manner that suggested he had never been uncomfortable anywhere in his life. Mr. Jong will join you shortly, someone said behind her. She turned, but whoever had spoken was already gone, the door clicking shut with a sound like a safety engaging. She was alone with the man at the window. Sabrina set her portfolio on the glass table and waited. She was good at waiting. Patience was another form of power. You are early, the man said without turning. His English was precise, accented in a way that made every word sound deliberate. 15 minutes, she replied. Professional courtesy. Or anxiety. Preparation. He turned then, and Sabrina felt something shift in her chest, a gear catching, a lock tumbling open. He was younger than she expected, maybe 30, with sharp features and dark eyes that studied her with the kind of focus usually reserved for contracts and weaknesses. Ink crawled up from his collar, intricate lines that disappeared beneath expensive fabric, the kind of tattoos that told stories in a language she did not speak. This was not an assistant. This was Jong Sung. You are not what I expected, he said. Neither are you. The words came out before she could stop them. Unprofessional. Unguarded. His mouth curved. Not quite a smile, but close. Dangerous. And what did you expect? Someone older. More. She gestured vaguely at the room, the view, the empire implicit in every polished surface. Traditional. Predictable. He moved closer, hands still in his pockets, and she caught the faint scent of something dark and woody. He stopped exactly 6 feet away, close enough to be conversational, far enough to remain formal. A man who understood distance. I have found, Jong said quietly, that the most valuable things are rarely predictable. He was not talking about architecture. Sabrina held his gaze, felt the weight of it like a hand against her sternum. She should say something clever. Something professional. Something that re-established the boundary he had just erased. Instead she smiled, small, controlled, and entirely genuine. Then let me show you something valuable. She opened her portfolio, and Jong Sung stepped closer to look. Neither of them noticed the rain beginning to fall against the windows, or the way the city below seemed to hold its breath, or the fact that destiny often arrived disguised as a 2 o'clock appointment on a Thursday afternoon. Sabrina isn't just another target. She's the storm he didn't see coming. If you love a strong queen, hit that like button and comment, "Queen" below. The charity gala at the Shilla Hotel was where Seoul's legitimate power came to shake hands with its shadow economy, everyone pretending not to know which was which. Sabrina had been invited by the hotel's managing director, thrilled with her preliminary designs, eager to parade his American architect like a trophy. She wore black, a silk gown that left her shoulders bare and her back exposed, elegant in its simplicity, and told herself this was networking, not performance. She was wrong. Jong saw her the moment she entered the ballroom. He was in conversation with an assemblywoman's husband, nodding at something boring about tax incentives, when Sabrina appeared at the top of the marble stairs like a disruption in expensive fabric. The room noticed. Men noticed. And Jong felt something primitive and possessive coil tight in his chest. He had not seen her in 2 weeks. She had delivered her renderings, shaken his hand with professional distance, and left his penthouse smelling faintly of jasmine. He had thought about her 14 times since then. He had stopped counting after that because counting meant it mattered. Now she was here, in his world, and every instinct he had spent 7 years honing told him this was dangerous. She moved through the crowd with practiced ease, smiling at introductions, accepting champagne she barely sipped. Jong tracked her peripherally while discussing construction timelines with a man who laundered money through real estate. He watched a hotel executive monopolize 10 minutes of her time. He watched her laugh at something that was probably not funny. He watched Choi Tae-min approach her. Jong went very still. Choi ran the Busan docks and had opinions about territorial expansion that often ended with people in the harbor. He was 50, twice divorced, and believed wealth entitled him to anything he wanted. He also had a reputation for preferring women who could not easily refuse him. Jong excused himself mid-sentence and began moving. He was 15 feet away when he heard Choi say, "You must be expensive. How much for a private showing?" Sabrina's smile went sharp. "I don't do private showings. And I'm not for sale. Everything is for sale, darling. Especially foreign." Jong's hand closed on Choi's shoulder before the sentence could finish. His grip was light, almost friendly, the kind of touch that preceded violence. "Choi SSI," Jong said softly. "You are drunk." Choi turned, his face flushing when he recognized who had interrupted. "Jong, I was just insulting my guest." Jong's voice remained pleasant, conversational. Around them, the nearest conversations died like candles in a draft. People stepped back, suggesting that Ms. Hayes is a prostitute. "In my presence." "I did not mean." "You did." Jong released his shoulder and moved to stand beside Sabrina, close enough that anyone watching would understand the geometry. "Let me be clear since you seem confused. Ms. Hayes is under my protection. Anyone who disrespects her, disrespects me. Anyone who touches her without permission will lose the hand. Are we understanding each other?" The ballroom had gone silent. 200 people pretending to look elsewhere while listening to every word. Choi's jaw worked. His eyes darted around the room, looking for support, finding none. "Of course. My apologies. I had too much. Leave." "What?" "This gala. This hotel. Leave now or I will have you removed in a manner you will not enjoy." Choi looked at Sabrina, once with something ugly in his expression, then back at Jong. Whatever he saw there made him step back, straighten his jacket, and walk toward the exit with as much dignity as a man could manage while being publicly humiliated. The moment he disappeared, conversation resumed like someone had turned the volume back up. Jong turned to Sabrina. Her expression was unreadable, but her hand trembled slightly around her champagne flute. "I did not need you to do that," she said quietly. "I know. You just painted a target on my back." "Yes." "Why?" Zhang looked at her, really looked at her, and felt the 7-year-old vow crack like ice under weight. "Because some things are worth protecting, even when it is dangerous. Especially then." Sabrina stared at him for a long moment. Then she set down her champagne and walked away, her bare back disappearing into the crowd. Zhang did not follow. He had already said too much. Across the room, 3 rival bosses were making phone calls. He just claimed her in front of the entire underworld. There's no turning back now. Subscribe if you think Zhang went too far, or was he just protecting his own? The invitation arrived by courier at 7 in the morning. A single black card with gold embossing and an address Sabrina already knew. No explanation. No apology for what had happened at the gala 3 days ago. Just a time, 8 o'clock tonight, and a handwritten line at the bottom in precise English. "We need to talk about your safety." Sabrina should have ignored it. Should have called her firm's security consultant, or booked an earlier flight back to New York, or done anything except what she actually did. Show up at Jong Sung's penthouse at exactly 8 o'clock wearing jeans and a silk blouse, her armor deliberately left at the hotel. The same guards opened the door. The same silence greeted her. But this time Zhang was waiting in the living room, jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, and Sabrina saw for the first time the full extent of the ink that marked him. It flowed like water up his forearms. Dragons and chrysanthemums, geometric patterns that transformed into birds mid-flight. Korean characters she could not read woven between images that looked simultaneously violent and beautiful. The tattoos continued past his elbows, disappearing under white fabric, a story written on skin. "You came," he said as if he had not been certain. "You summoned." She set her bag down. "I'm here. Talk about my safety." Zhang poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if she drank. "After the gala, I made inquiries. Choi has been asking questions about you. Where you are staying. When you leave the country. Who you travel with." Sabrina's stomach tightened, but her face remained calm. And he is the type of man who does not forget humiliation." Zhang handed her a glass. Their fingers brushed. Neither pulled away immediately. "I have people watching your hotel. Monitoring your movements. You are safe, but I'm a liability now." She sipped the whiskey. It burned perfectly. "Because you decided to claim me in front of the entire Seoul underworld without asking if I wanted to be claimed." Yes. The honesty surprised her. She expected deflection, justification, the kind of alpha posturing men like him usually offered. Instead he simply stood there, looking at her with those dark eyes that saw too much. "Why?" Sabrina asked. "Why me? You don't know me. I'm a contract designer who'll be gone in 3 weeks. Why risk a territorial war over someone who means nothing?" Zhang was quiet for a long moment. Then he set down his glass and began unbuttoning his shirt. Sabrina's breath caught. "What are you?" "You asked about the ink." He shrugged out of the shirt completely, and Sabrina forgot how to form words. The tattoos covered him. Chest, shoulders, back, a masterpiece of pain and precision. A phoenix rising from flames across his ribs. A tiger mid-leap on his shoulder blade. And there, over his heart, a single phrase in flowing script that she could not read but somehow understood was important. "This one," Zhang said, touching the characters above his heart, "says never again. I got it the night I took control of my organization. A reminder that attachment is weakness. That caring about anything makes you vulnerable." He looked at her. "I have not cared about anything in 7 years. Not people. Not outcomes. Nothing. Until you walked into my penthouse 2 weeks ago and looked at me like I was just a man. Not a boss. Not a threat. Just someone you were meeting for a 2 o'clock appointment." He stepped closer. "You have no idea how dangerous that is for me. How dangerous I am for you." Sabrina should have backed away. Instead she reached out and traced the phoenix on his ribs with one finger. His skin was warm, the muscle beneath taut. She felt him stop breathing. I grew up in Chicago, she said quietly. South Side. I know what dangerous looks like. I know what men with power do when they want something. She met his eyes. But I also know the difference between a man who takes and a man who protects. You could have sent security to watch me without telling me. You could have handled Choi quietly. You didn't. That does not make me safe. No. Her hand flattened against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Fast, unsteady, human. But it makes you honest. Jong caught her wrist, but did not pull her hand away. Sabrina. She kissed him. It was not soft. Not tentative. It was the acknowledgement of something that had been inevitable since the moment she had stepped into his world and refused to be small. He responded instantly, his free hand sliding into her hair, tilting her head back, deepening the kiss until they were both breathless. When they finally broke apart, Sabrina's lipstick was smudged and Jong's carefully maintained control had shattered completely. This is a mistake, he said. Probably. You should leave Seoul. I won't. Then you stay close to me. Always. No arguments. Sabrina smiled against his mouth. We'll see. The tension is lethal. Can you feel the heat between them? Subscribe and comment your favorite dark romance trope right now. Kang Do-hyun had served Jong Sung for 6 years with the kind of loyalty that looked perfect from the outside. He arrived early, executed orders without question, and had personally eliminated 3 potential threats to Jong's reign before they became problems. He was trusted, valued, indispensable. He was also ambitious. Do-hyun sat in a private room at a Itaewon club that did not officially exist, across from 2 men who should have been enemies but were currently united by a shared grievance. Jong Sung had gone soft. He cancelled the Incheon deal, said Park Jin-woo, a lieutenant who controlled the northern gambling operations. 12 million in profit gone, because he said the risk was too high. Since when does Jong Sung worry about risk? Since the American, Do-hyun said quietly. He sipped his soju and let the words settle. The third man, Lee Sang-min, who ran protection rackets in Gangnam, leaned forward. You have seen them together? Twice this week. She stays at his penthouse. He has 8 men watching her hotel even though she does not sleep there anymore. He leaves meetings early. He smiles. Do-hyun said that last word like a diagnosis. Jong Sung does not smile. Jin-woo shook his head. One woman should not. It is never just one woman. Do-hyun set down his glass with deliberate care. It is what she represents. Distraction. Weakness. A pressure point we have never had access to before. He looked between them. How long have we waited for an opportunity like this? How many years have we watched him consolidate power, eliminate rivals, build an empire so tight there was no room to breathe? And now? Sang-min asked. Now he has given us a gift. He has shown us exactly what matters to him more than the organization. Jin-woo was quiet for a moment, thinking through angles, calculating loyalties. Choi already tried to embarrass him at the gala. It failed. Because Choi is a blunt instrument, Do-hyun said. He thinks with his ego. We will be smarter. We will not attack Jong directly. We will make him vulnerable first. Make him choose between his empire and his obsession. How? Do-hyun pulled out his phone and showed them a photograph. Sabrina leaving a coffee shop near the hotel construction site, laughing at something on her phone, completely unaware of the camera. She looked radiant, unguarded, mortal. We do not need to kill her, Do-hyun said. We just need to threaten her convincingly enough that Jong makes a mistake. Overextends his protection. Alienates allies by prioritizing her safety over business. Once the organization sees him as compromised, they will turn. They always do. Sang-min studied the photo with the expression of a man evaluating merchandise. And if Jong finds out we are behind it? He will not find out until it is too late. I am his second. I see every report, every security update, every movement of his personal guard. I know where his blind spots are because I helped create them. Do-hyun took the phone back. I have been loyal for 6 years. He trusts me completely. That trust is worth more than an army. Jinwoo drained his glass. What do you need from us? Patience. Resources. And when the moment comes, your men ready to move. Zhang built this empire on fear and control. We will dismantle it the same way. They shook hands, a pact made in shadows over liquor, between men who believed power was worth any betrayal. Du Hyun left first, walking out into the humid night air with his phone already buzzing. A message from Zhang. Asterisk meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. Security assessment. Asterisk. He typed back, I'll be there. Then he opened a different message thread, one that was not saved under any name, and wrote 4 words. Asterisk begin surveillance. Phase 1. Asterisk. Across the city, in Zhang's penthouse, Sabrina slept soundly in sheets that cost more than her monthly rent, her head on Zhang's chest, his hand tangled in her hair. He was awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the Incheon deal he had cancelled and wondering when caution had started to feel like wisdom instead of weakness. His phone sat on the nightstand, dark and silent. No alerts. No threats. No warnings. Du Hyun had made certain of that. The trap was already closing, and neither Zhang nor Sabrina had any idea they were standing in the center of it. Betrayal is brewing in the shadows. Who do you think will blink first? Subscribe so you don't miss the moment it all explodes. The restaurant was a mistake from the beginning, though Zhang did not realize it until the first bullet shattered the window. He had chosen it because Sabrina asked to go somewhere normal. Not a penthouse, not a private room, just a place where they could pretend to be ordinary people having dinner. The small Italian restaurant in Yongsan had checked out clean. 2 exits, sightlines to the street, his men stationed at intervals that looked casual to anyone not trained to notice. Sabrina was telling him about her first design project, something about a community center in Brooklyn. Her eyes bright with the kind of passion he had forgotten people could have about their work. He was listening, actually listening, not just waiting for his turn to speak, when every instinct he possessed screamed danger half a second before the glass exploded inward. Zhang moved on pure reflex. He grabbed Sabrina and pulled her down as the bullet meant for his head punched through the leather booth behind them. She gasped against his chest, confused, and he covered her body with his own as 2 more shots followed. Suppressed, professional, aimed with intention. Stay down, he said into her hair. Then louder, in Korean, contact, west window, rooftop across the street. His men responded instantly. One overturned a table for cover. Another was already moving toward the kitchen exit. The civilian diners screamed and scattered, but Zhang had stopped tracking them. His world had narrowed to 3 things: Sabrina's heartbeat against his ribs, the trajectory of the shots, and the calculation of how to get her out alive. Zhang. Sabrina's voice was steady despite the fear. He felt her trying to look up. Do not move. He shifted just enough to pull the gun from his shoulder holster. Compact, familiar, loaded with ammunition he had hoped never to use in her presence. When I say run, you run to the kitchen. Do not look back. Do not stop. My man there will take you to the car. What about you? I will be right behind you. It was a lie. They both knew it. Another shot, this one taking out the overhead light, plunging half the restaurant into darkness. Smart. The shooter was adjusting for movement. For visibility. Zhang's mind worked through the angles. Rooftop position meant at least 200 meters, which meant scope, which meant spotter. This was not random. This was coordinated. His phone buzzed against his ribs. A message from his head of security. Asterisk 2 vehicles approaching from south. Armed. Asterisk. Not just a sniper. A team. Zhang made a decision. He grabbed Sabrina's face with his free hand, forcing her to look at him. Listen to me very carefully. In 5 seconds, the lights will go out completely. When they do, you run. You do not wait for me. You get in the car and you go to the safe house in Gangnam. The address is in your phone. You stay there until I come for you. Zhang. Promise me. Her eyes searched his face. She was terrified but not panicking, and he loved her for that. Loved her in a way that made the 7-year-old Vow feel like something from another life. Promise me, Sabrina. I promise. He kissed her once, hard and fast, then released her and signaled to his man at the kitchen entrance. 3 seconds later, every light in the restaurant died. Run. She ran. Jong heard her footsteps fade toward the kitchen, heard the door slam, and then he stopped being the man who took her to dinner and became the thing he had been before she existed. Lethal, efficient, empty of everything except purpose. He moved through the darkness like smoke. Out the front entrance while the shooters expected him to flee through the back. Across the street in a crouch that put parked cars between him and the rooftop. Up the fire escape of the building opposite with his gun drawn and his heartbeat slow. The sniper was good. He almost got a shot off when Jong cleared the rooftop access. Almost. Jong put 2 rounds through his scope before the man could adjust. The spotter reached for his radio, and Jong shot him through the wrist, then the knee. He went down screaming. Jong crouched beside him, gun pressed to the man's temple. Who sent you? The spotter spat blood. You are already dead. She is already. Jong pulled the trigger. He did not have time for interrogation. He had time only for one thing. Getting to Sabrina before whoever sent these men sent more. He pulled out his phone as he ran back down the fire escape. 3 missed calls from his security chief. 1 message from Do Hyun. Asterisk, where are you? I'm hearing reports of shots fired. Asterisk. Jong did not respond. Something about the timing felt wrong. Too convenient, too coordinated. He called the safe house instead. No answer. Jong started running faster. Every tattoo tells a story of blood. If you're hooked on Jong's secrets, smash that subscribe button and let me know. Do you trust him yet? The safe house was empty. Jong stood in the middle of the Gangnam apartment with his gun still drawn and his heart doing something it had not done since he was 10 years old. It was breaking. The door had been forced, professionally with tools that left minimal damage. No blood. No signs of struggle. Just Sabrina's phone on the kitchen counter, screen shattered, and a single black rose laid across it like a funeral offering. He had been calling her for 20 minutes. 20 minutes of driving through Seoul traffic like a man possessed, running red lights, his security team scrambling to follow. 20 minutes of telling himself she was fine, she had gotten out, she was smart and capable and still breathing. The rose told a different story. Jong's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered before the first ring finished. Jong sung. The voice was electronically distorted, gender and age unidentifiable. You have something that belongs to us. We have something that belongs to you. Perhaps we can negotiate an exchange. Where is she? Not a question. A demand wrapped in a tone that had made grown men confess to crimes they had not committed. Safe. For now. Whether she stays that way depends entirely on your cooperation. Jong closed his eyes and became very still. This was the moment, the fulcrum point where emotion and strategy collided. He could hear his own voice from 7 years ago. Attachment is weakness. Caring makes you vulnerable. Never let anyone matter enough to be used against you. He had failed spectacularly. What do you want, he said. Your territory in Gangnam. Your shipping operations in Busan. And your public resignation from the organization. Effective immediately. You walk away, Jong. You disappear. And maybe you get to keep the American. You are asking me to surrender my entire empire. We are offering you a chance to keep breathing. Some would call that generous. Jong walked to the window. Seoul sprawled below him, glittering and indifferent, a city he had conquered block by block, building by building, body by body. He thought about the 15-year-old version of himself who had sworn to never be powerless again, who had clawed his way from nothing to everything through will and violence and absolute refusal to bend. That boy would have let Sabrina die rather than surrender. Jong was no longer that boy. I need proof she is alive, he said. A pause. Then a new voice came on the line, Sabrina's voice, tight with controlled fear but unmistakably hers. Jong, don't. The line went dead. Jong's hand shook. He looked down and saw his knuckles had gone white around the phone. Slowly, deliberately, he unclenched his fingers and set the device on the windowsill. Then he pulled out a second phone, the one only 3 people had the number to, and made a call. Hyun, his head of security, answered immediately. I have teams searching. Stop searching. Pull everyone back to the penthouse. Now. But. Do it. Jong's voice was flat, empty of inflection. And send Do-hyun to me. Tell him I need his counsel. Tell him it is urgent. He hung up before the man could respond. His primary phone rang again. The distorted voice returned. You have 12 hours to decide. Midnight tonight, you will receive instructions for the transfer of assets. If you involve the police, she dies. If you attempt a rescue, she dies. If you are not alone when we contact you again, she dies. Do we understand each other? Perfectly. Good. We will be in. One more thing, Jong interrupted. His voice had changed. It was the voice he used in the alley 7 years ago, when he shot his mentor's killer and took control of an empire. Cold. Certain. Lethal. When I find out who you are, and I will find out, I am going to take everything you love and burn it in front of you. Then I am going to make you wish you had killed me when you had the chance. Silence on the other end. Midnight, the voice finally said, and disconnected. Jong stood at the window for a long moment. Then he turned and looked at the shattered phone on the counter, at the black rose wilting in a recycled air, at the reflection of himself in the darkened television screen. He looked like a ghost. Do-hyun arrived 40 minutes later, concern etched across his face. Hyun, I came as soon as I heard. What happened? Where is? Jong turned from the window. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes made Do-hyun stop mid-sentence. Sit down, Jong said quietly. We need to talk about loyalty. They took the only thing he loves. Now the monster is awake. Subscribe immediately to see how Jong burns the city down to find her. Do-hyun realized his mistake the moment Jong's expression shifted from grief to something far more dangerous. Loyalty, Jong repeated softly. You have been with me for 6 years. You know how I think. You know my routines, my security protocols, my weaknesses. He stepped closer. You know, for instance, that the Gangnam safehouse is only used for my most trusted contacts. That only 5 people have the address. Do-hyun's hand drifted toward his jacket. Hyun, I do not understand. The restaurant attack came exactly 40 minutes after I told you where we would be eating. The safehouse was compromised within an hour of me sending Sabrina there. Jong's voice remained conversational, but his hand was already on his gun. Either I have a supernatural enemy who can read minds, or I have a traitor who has been feeding information to people who want me dead. Do-hyun drew his weapon. Jong was faster. The shot took Do-hyun in the shoulder, spinning him backward into the kitchen counter. His gun clattered across marble as Jong closed the distance and pressed the barrel against his former second-in-command's forehead. Where is she? Do-hyun laughed, a wet, pained sound. You are already too late. By now Jin-woo has received word that I am compromised. They will kill her and disappear before you. Jong shot him in the kneecap. The scream echoed through the empty apartment. Jong waited for it to subside into gasping sobs before speaking again. I am going to ask you one more time. You are going to tell me where they are holding her, who is involved, and how many men they have. Then you are going to call Jin-woo and tell him the meeting with me went well, that I am broken and ready to surrender. Do you understand? Do-hyun spat blood. Go to hell. After you. Jong moved the gun to his other knee. Do-hyun broke after the third shot. The warehouse was in Incheon, near the docks where shipping containers sat like metal tombs and the smell of salt mixed with industrial waste. Jong arrived at 11:45 with 8 men, 3 vehicles, and a plan that would either save Sabrina or get them all killed. He preferred the former. Rain had started falling. Heavy, Seoul monsoon rain that turned the world gray and washed blood into gutters without judgment. Jong left 6 men at strategic positions around the perimeter and took 2 with him through a service entrance that Do-hyun's confession had revealed. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of containers and shadows. Jong moved through it like a ghost, weapon raised, every sense heightened. He heard voices ahead, Korean, casual, the sound of men who thought they had already won. They had not won. The first guard died silently, Zhang's knife across his throat before he could reach for his radio. The second managed to get a shot off that went wide, and then Zhang put 2 rounds through his chest and kept moving. Alarms started blaring. Lights flooded the warehouse. Zhang stopped hiding and started hunting. What happened next took 6 minutes and felt like hours. Zhang moved through the space with brutal efficiency, shooting, reloading, using containers for cover, his men flanking and suppressing while he advanced. He took a bullet in the side that felt like fire but did not slow him down. He killed Jin Woo personally. 3 shots center mass when the man tried to use a hostage as a shield. And then he found her. Sabrina was zip-tied to a chair in a storage office, her lips split, her wrists raw from struggling, but alive. So impossibly alive. When she saw him, something broke in her expression. Relief and fear and fury all at once. Zhang killed the man guarding her without hesitation, then dropped to his knees and cut her restraints with shaking hands. "You came," she whispered. "Always." He pulled her against his chest, and she felt the blood soaking through his shirt, warm and wet. "You are hurt." Later. He kissed her forehead, her temple, her mouth. "We need to move." Sang-min is still. The explosion came from the east side of the warehouse, a fireball that turned night into day and sent debris raining like judgment. Zhang covered Sabrina instinctively, felt something sharp tear across his back, and then his men were there, pulling them both toward the exit. They made it outside as the second explosion hit. The warehouse collapsed inward, flames reaching toward the rain-dark sky, and Zhang realized with cold certainty that Sang-min had never planned to negotiate. He had planned to bury everyone. Zhang held Sabrina in the rain, both of them bleeding, both of them breathing, and watched his past burn. It's blood, rain, and pure chaos. Who's cheering for Zhang to save Sabrina? Comment, Team Zhang, and share this video with a friend. The meeting took place in the same private room where Du Hyun had plotted treason 3 weeks ago. Zhang had chosen the location deliberately, a message written in geography and memory. 17 men sat around the table, the surviving power structure of Seoul's underworld, waiting to see if their world would continue or collapse. Zhang walked in with Sabrina at his side. The room went silent. She wore black, elegant, professional, a woman who belonged in boardrooms, not blood-soaked warehouses. The bruise on her cheekbone had faded to yellow. The cuts on her wrists were hidden beneath gold bracelets. She looked like what she was, a survivor who had chosen to stay. Zhang had not asked her to come to this meeting. She had insisted. "Gentlemen," Zhang said, remaining standing while Sabrina took the chair at his right hand, the chair that had belonged to Du Hyun before betrayal. "We are here to discuss the future." An older boss named Huang cleared his throat. "With respect, Zhang SSI, bringing an outsider too." "Ms. Hayes is not an outsider. She is under my protection. She has earned her place at this table by surviving an attempt on her life orchestrated by men we trusted." Zhang's voice was calm, absolute. "Anyone who has a problem with her presence can leave now. Permanently." No one moved. "Good. Then let us be clear about how things will work going forward." Zhang placed both hands on the table. His knuckles were still bruised from Incheon. "The trafficking operations end today. The protection rackets targeting small businesses end today. The loan sharking that targets families ends today." Murmurs rippled around the table. A younger lieutenant named Choi spoke up. "That is 40% of our revenue." "I am aware. We will replace it with legitimate investments. Real estate, technology, construction." Zhang glanced at Sabrina. "We have access to consultants who can help us transition." "You are talking about going clean," Huang said slowly. "That is not who we are. No. I am talking about evolution, about building something that lasts longer than the next territory war." Zhang straightened. "I have spent 7 years ruling through fear. It worked. But fear makes men desperate, and desperate men make stupid choices. Du Hyun, Jin Woo, Sang-min, they were afraid of becoming irrelevant. That fear almost destroyed everything." He let the word settle. watching faces shift from skepticism to calculation. I am offering you a choice. Stay and we build something new together. Something that makes us richer and keeps us alive longer than our fathers lived. Or leave, take your territory, and see how long you last when the other organizations realize we are no longer unified. Silence. Then Huang stood slowly and bowed, not deeply but enough. I have known you since you were 23 years old, Zhang Sung. I have never seen you afraid of anything. But I see it now. He looked at Sabrina. You are afraid of losing her. That makes you dangerous in a new way. Unpredictable. Does that concern you? Zhang asked. Huang smiled, a rare expression. No. It makes me think you might actually survive long enough to enjoy your fortune. I am in. One by one, the others agreed. Some enthusiastically, some reluctantly, but all of them smart enough to recognize that Zhang Sung had just offered them a future instead of a funeral. The meeting ended. The men filed out. Only Sabrina remained. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at Seoul's nighttime skyline. Zhang came up behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth but not touching. Not yet. You know this will not last, Sabrina said quietly. Someone will test you. Someone always does. I know. And when they do, you will have to prove that going soft did not make you weak. I know that too. He turned her to face him, hands gentle on her shoulders. But I also know that I would rather build something worth protecting than rule something worth nothing. Sabrina studied his face, the face that had terrified grown men, that had ordered deaths without flinching, that now looked at her like she was the only empire that mattered. What if I told you I got offered a project in Singapore, she said. 6 months. Starting next month. Zhang went very still. Are you taking it? That depends. On whether you are asking me to stay or coming with me. The question hung between them like a blade. Outside, the city hummed with late-night traffic and neon promises. Inside, Zhang Sung, who had built an empire on never needing anyone, realized he was about to make the most dangerous choice of his life. Sabrina. His phone buzzed. A message from his new head of security. Asterisk urgent. Sangmin's body never recovered from warehouse. Possible survivor. Asterisk. Zhang looked at the message, then at Sabrina, then back at the message. She saw his expression change. What is it? Nothing, he lied, pocketing the phone. We should go. But as they left the building and stepped into the rain-slicked night, Zhang scanned the street with the instincts of a man who knew the war was not over. Not while Sangmin's fate remained uncertain, not while enemies still breathed in the shadows, and not while the woman he loved stood in the crossfire of a world that would never truly let him go. He took her hand anyway. Some things were worth the risk. Thank you so much for staying with us until the very end. It truly means the world to have you here, and I hope this story of Zhang Sung and Sabrina moved you as much as it did me. If you enjoyed this journey, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to make sure you never miss our upcoming stories. Also, don't forget to res-hair this video with someone who loves a good romance. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know which part of the story you loved the most. Was it Zhang's intense vow, or Sabrina's unwavering strength? I'll be reading through your comments. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. Happy New Year!